G'day guys, Blake here with another video, and I thought we'd do something a little bit different today, a little bit of fun. So as us fish hobby addicts do, I was having a look on Facebook Marketplace, checking out some bargains, and I came across this little Fluval Flex here. As you guys know, I am a big fan of the Fluval Flex as a whole and as a starter kit. This one here, however, needed a little bit of TLC, hence the cheaper price tag. So for today's video, I thought I could run through how I'm going to turn this from scrap to Scape and hopefully provide a bit of confidence if you do come across a really unique tank or something that just needs a little bit of love, so that you'll know what to do if you want to do the same thing yourself. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into the video and turn this from scrap to Scape. Okay, so as I mentioned, I got this off Facebook Marketplace. It cost $50, which is still not that cheap, but it's cheap for what this is. Comes with everything you'd expect, all the lights, everything. You know, there's just a little bit of dustiness on the lights and all that sort of thing, but good working condition. I hope so, at least. Inside we have, always exciting to see what you get inside these Facebook Marketplace tanks. We have our favorite SpongeBob decorations here. So I think that's what, the SpongeBob bus. We have Gary the snail. Meow. We might have to give him a little bit of love as well. He featured on my recent live stream. We of course have SpongeBob here. Awesome. And you can't have a SpongeBob inspired tank without Patrick Star as well. So the gang's all here. What else? You always find some little goodies in there as well. So we got activated carbon packet in here as well. And I do still have some leftovers from when I got my original Flex. It did come with the remote, which is handy. Sometimes people lose those. It's still got the pump and it's still got the original filter block here, complete with carbon. That would probably be well overdue. I'm gonna toss that. And the bio rings. So that's all good. All of this stuff, just a bit of a rinse and should be fine. But the most pressing issue before we can do anything is we have to go and dispose of this toxic waste here, this colored gravel, everyone's favorite. I guess if this was a kid's tank, it's probably fair, but we don't have any need for any white, black, blue, green, and pink gravel today. So I'm gonna toss that straight in the bin, and then we'll start work on getting this glass back up to scratch, or hopefully not scratch. So I'll go dump this gravel and we'll get started on the glass. I'll run you through what I'm gonna do there. Okay, so now that all that gravel's gone, it's time to fix up this glass. And just looks like dried up algae here for this one today. So I'm just gonna hopefully use the combination of a brand new razor blade, potentially some of this Barkeeper's Friend here, which is really helpful for calcium stains. And then outside of that, I'm just going to use a regular kitchen sponge. I'll try not to use the scourer side. I'll stick to mostly the yellow sponge side. So I'll just get some nice warm water and we'll get started on that. So I'm just going to give it a once over with the sponge first, see what comes off and what doesn't. Then after that, I'm going to go to the next step of the razor blade. Bit of moisture will help the razor blade in any case, so just always good to start off with a sponge. Now always be careful when you do this not to pick up a little piece of a leftover rock or anything like that and rub it all around, scratching up your glass. Especially if the tank had sand in it, that's really easy to pick up and do a lot of damage without you noticing. Okay, so I've done the first once over with the sponge now. It hasn't really made too much of an impact, so I'm going to start using the razor blade. With the razor blade, with the curve as well, I'm going to use the wide side up and down to keep a nice straight line. The other thing to be careful about these razor blades is if your silicone is intact, then make sure you don't ruin that by going too close to the corners. Okay, so I just gave it a good rinse off, and actually the glass doesn't look too bad. I'm not even going to go ahead with the Barkeeper's Friend, I don't think. It actually looks in pretty good condition, not too many scratches and things like that. So really, really happy with how it's come up. I'm just got a microfiber cloth now, just drying it down so you can have a really good look at if there's anything left, if there's another area I need to go over or anything like that. Now at home, if you're not making a video on this, I'd recommend doing it out the backyard. You can have a hose it down, be as messy as you like, and it's a lot easier of a process from there. So I mentioned at the top that it was an okay bargain, but I thought it was better. And that's something that I'd recommend doing when buying these secondhand aquariums. Is I thought it was onto a much better bargain originally, because I asked if this flex was the 15 gallon or the 57 litre variety. The person did say that it was the biggest variety, which I took to mean that. However, in person, when I got it back home, it's actually the 9 gallon variety, or the 34 litre variety. So that's on me. I always recommend take a tape measure with you when you buy secondhand tanks. You can never rely on people's word or people's measurements unless you take them yourself. So I've had it happen too many times that the dimensions are a little bit off when you get home, which is a lesson that I need to learn from and actually take myself a tape measure to these things, but you live and learn. So next up, I'm gonna take the pump and the pump head and anything else that I think just needs a little bit of a cleanup, and I'm just gonna do the exact same process, basically scrub them down. If there's a pipe like this that's a bit brittle, I might just replace it. Vinyl tubing is really easy to come by. And check out the suction cups as well on any of these pumps. Although this pump just sits at the bottom, so the suction cups aren't actually that critical. So I'm just gonna clean up all these bits and bobs as well. We should have a pretty nice blank canvas ready to start scaping after that. If you do have really fine detail that you wanna get in and clean up, maybe a piece of dragonstone or something like that, an old toothbrush can go a long way to getting into those nooks and crannies and helping that out. And the other thing as well is if you do have any old pumps, it's always a good idea to check out the impeller, or in this case, check out this manky pre-filter sponge here, which is absolutely disgusting and rock hard. I'm actually just not even gonna bother with that. I'm gonna throw that out. Check the impellers of any pumps. Put them underwater in a bucket, make sure they're still working before it goes into the back of this tank up against a wall, and it's a lot more difficult after that. I suspect the reason that this person was so keen to sell this tank now is because they had this pump set up all wrong. First of all, that pre-filter sponge looks like it's never been cleaned, so I suspect maybe they didn't realize that was something that had to be maintained. Also, this pipe here was kinked, and it was because they had the pump mounted on the side and a kink in this pipe here, so they would have got very minimal flow from this, where the pump's actually supposed to be mounted on the ground, making full use of that hose. So bet you they had a lot of dramas with the back filtration section of this Fluval Flex. So in the end, I just kind of got a bit lazy. I decided I'm not going to replace that tubing because it's at the back where I'm not really going to be able to see it, so I'm not too fussed about it. I would be more fussed about this kink more than anything, but because this screws into the top area at the back, it is going to straighten out naturally over time, so I'm less worried about that. Now the other thing I'm going to do is just take off these little knuckles, because I want to make sure that there's no jams up in the end of these flat sections here, which can happen, but it looks like we're okay in this case. There's a bit of muck and debris in there, but nothing too crazy. Okay, so we'll put the pump back in and we should be nearly ready to rock and roll. Next up, I'll just give the sponge a bit of a rinse out, but it looks okay to me, well, which is no surprise really, because the filter was barely putting out any water. So I'll give it a quick rinse out and should be ready to go. And then in the top, I will just use one of these carbon cartridges that we got. I'll chuck one of those in as well, because why not? Okay, so then we'll just put our new carbon in there, slide it down, and we're ready to get started. So overall, pretty happy with how everything's come up so far, pretty easy. At this point in time, you really want to give this silicone a good inspection, check for any bubbles or anything that might present a leak. In our case, this tank looks pretty new to me, so I'm happy with that, but It's always better to be precautionary than have a wet floor, especially if you're gonna have tanks in an indoor setting. So do keep that in mind. For me, I'm gonna risk it for the biscuit because I like to live life dangerously. Okay, so I think for the next part, let's turn this thing into a scape. Now, I don't think that we can have a video titled Scrap to Scape without also using things that I've already got around the fish room to scape it out. So I keep a lot of my old substrates just in a bucket outside, which is just a mixture from everything I've ever had. And then I just rinse the dust off. So kind of continuously cycles through all my old aqua soils. So I'm gonna use that as a base here today. And then we'll find some plants around the place, fill it up, and I might even stick some hardscape in there as well if I'm feeling creative. Now, to me, there's nothing more painful than trying to plant in really shallow substrates, so I always end up putting in probably more than I should, but just to have something for the roots to grip onto when we plant out. My theory is as well is that that will also help have more surface area for bacteria to grow on and create a long-term, more stable environment. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with how that's gone so far. So before I put any plants in, I might get some hardscape and start to play around with it. I do have a bucket down by my feet of dragonstone, which I think could be fun for this project. Okay, so I like to always have odd numbers when it comes to my hardscape. So I'm just gonna add one extra piece because I got 4 in there so far. So I'm pretty happy with that and how that's coming out now. It's hard to see with the glare, but yeah, it's pretty much taken up about half of the tank, which is a bit more than I usually like to do. But I think overall, it should look pretty good once the foreground is planted out. Now, the obvious thing to do to plant this out would just be to put Monte Carlo in the front, but I always get a bit bored with that. So I'm gonna find a little variety of crypts and things like that that might be fun to sort of carpet out. And I'll just see what we've got lying around the place, which might be good for this kind of setting. Alrighty guys, so I think I've got it to where I'm happy with it now. I'm going along and install a bunch of plants from a bunch of tanks, so I'll run you through what those plants are. The only other thing to note on before that is if you are going to take a while to consider planting things out, make sure you have a spray bottle of water and spray things down. If you've got a bit of a creative block, you can always put some cling film or glad wrap over the top to keep it nice and humid. Go away, have lunch or dinner or whatever, and you can always come back to it. As long as it's humid, everything will be okay. But now it's time to fill this up and take a bit of a better look with a light on it. So yeah, I'm gonna move some things and we'll have it set up over there. And just like that, the Scrap to Scape plan is complete. I'm sitting next to my brand new used Fluval Flex. I think we did a pretty good job of upgrading it from what it was. A bit of a messy disaster. So now we've got the combination of aqua soils in there, a bunch of dragonstone. We've got some classic plants such as AR Mini, S. repens, Anubias, Trident Leaf, Java Fern. We've got some Rotala, Rotundifolia, Hygrophila pinnatifida, and a little bit of Bucephalandra. So at the moment it still looks a bit sparse and it does have some growing into view, but if it's anything like my other Fluval Flakes, I think it's only going to get better with age, and I'm excited to update you, which will probably be in my next full fish room tour or something like that. As well as that, I wanted to give it a few days to settle in, and 5 days have probably passed since I set it up originally. I've actually got a fish in there now, and that has been part of the challenge, is that every time I have got the camera out, the fish that's in there scurries off to a little cave in the back of the Dragonstone. But I moved my pea puffer in here. I thought, what a brilliant tank that will accentuate the pea puffer perfectly. And outside of that, the main sort of nano fish I'm keeping are ones that I'm hoping to breed with my egg breeder contraption, and this tank didn't really fit that aesthetic, so I thought it's a good one for the pea puffer to move into, and I've been really trying to capture some footage of them for you, but yeah, we'll see. You'll see now if I did manage to do that or not, but I just simply don't want more days to go past as I wait for that to happen. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, something a little bit different than what I've been doing lately, but I certainly had a lot of fun with it. If you enjoyed it, please let me know down below, and I'll keep an eye on similar projects that I can keep coming in the future. Maybe we can keep a close eye on Marketplace and do another Scrap to Scape challenge as well. If you have a similar bargain on your own Facebook Marketplace, that would be also cool to see. If you want to call it Scrap to Scape, then go for it as well, and I'll see through the hashtag if you do that. But other than that, just if you enjoyed it, always helps me out to smash like, hit subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.